All right, here we are for the last video of the Boho Chic Summer Cover-Up Crochet Along. This is the bitty baby version of it. We've been working on this over the last 2 videos, and this one is going to be all about assembly. But the thing that I want you to do is make sure, obviously before we go any further, because we can still add rows if we need to, make sure that your sizes are the same. So I've got 3.5, and I've got basically 3.5, and then I've got 7 inches. You want your back to be double the size of your 2 fronts. I did have to throw an extra row on here. Normally we stop at row 7, but I threw an extra row on because I was just a touch short to reach the 7 inches, and it's really not going to make any difference in the final product. But what we're going to do first is we are going to, after you have all of your sizes figured out and you've got your ends at the top weaved in so that you don't have any obstruction for the top of your garment. All right, so in order to get our front and back lined up so that we can do our shoulders, I am going to measure across the top of my back piece, and I'm going to find the center. So half of 7 is 3.5, and I'm going to just mark that center stitch. And then from there, because we're doing the bitty baby version on the video, but for the human version, you're going to want to do that exact same thing, mark the center. But on your human version, you're going to go 3.5 inches out from your center piece on the human version. On the bitty baby version, we're only going out 1 inch. And I'm just going to put this through real quick, not close it off. I'll show you why in a minute. All right, and then same with the other side, just going to slide that in there. So when we're looking at putting our front on here, let's see, yeah, the green part, there we go. That needs to go like that. So we're going to put our right sides together because this is how we're going to assemble it. And I'm going to match up my corner up here. I'm going to use another stitch marker to kind of safety pin it together so that I don't lose my spots. Now on this corner where it's got a chain 4 turn, you're going to skip that first chain right here and you're going to mark it right there. That's the stitch you're going to want to use as your corner. Now the reason why we marked it and didn't put it in completely was because we're going to, these should basically line up. And so we're going to go through those 2 because when we sew this together, wrong side or right sides together, and when we flip it back over, this is going to give us a little bit of a neck opening here. And so we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. And we are going to use a stitch marker to safety pin our ends together. And then we are also going to come over here and put these 2 together. These are just really kind of holding it in place. All right, so there's our center. Here's our shoulder. This is the only spot we're going to be sewing together. So when you're doing your human version, you will have that same center spot. You'll be out 3.5 inches this way and 3.5 inches that way so that you leave enough space for the back of your neck to go through. And then the only spot you're going to be sewing together is going to be from your corner to the stitch that's holding these 2 pieces together. All right, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to grab some yarn, get it on a needle, and I'll show you how I put mine together. All right, when I'm putting garments together, I have a tendency to not like doing knots because I don't want things to pop out and be seen later on. So in order to secure my yarn so that it is not going to pop out later on, I will go in the backs of my stitches and I will weave them in as though I were finishing off. But it's actually just securing those stitches, and I have never had a garment come apart to date. So I firmly believe in this particular procedure. All right, so now I'm just going to weave my way over to the corner where we're going to start. You can remove your stitch marker. And I am going to basically whip stitch. So remember I said to miss this first chain here and go into this one because that's going to be your corner. Now you can do a mattress stitch on this, which a mattress stitch means that you go back and forth, which actually works really, really nice. And you just basically work your stitches back and forth like so. Make sure you're lining up your ends. It keeps your seam very, very neat. Or you can whip stitch, which means going over the top of your work. So you are like that, and then you just go right back over the top again and work from the back to the front. It really is your preference. The whip stitch will show up a little bit more than the mattress stitch will. But usually if you use a coordinating yarn, it won't show up very much. I'm going back to the mattress stitch. And now I'm coming up on my pin. So I'm just going to go through that, take that out. This is where I'm going to end this. So I'm going to just do a whip stitch over the top. And then I'm going to weave in my ends in the background. You want to try and keep like your needle to the front so that it doesn't show up on the other side. I shouldn't say the front, the back, the front facing you, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. And then just weave that bad boy back up through there. And if you're afraid it's going to come apart, go through one more time. This is going on a doll, so I'm not too worried about that. All right, so we've got our first shoulder seam done. Now I'm going to show you where the whip stitch shows up. The mattress stitch kept our stitches from just looking normal. The whip stitch is right here. But see, it's just a super tiny little over the top. So if you're okay with that and you keep your stitches small, it should look just fine. All right, go ahead and put your next shoulder together, and then we will work on the sides and the front. All right, now both fronts are stitched on, and we are going to move on to the armpits. And so when I measured for the armpits on the human size one, I went an inch further than the neck size. So the neck size is 7 inches on the adult version and 8 inches in the armpit. I'm going to kind of play around with the numbers here. We ended up doing a total of 2 inches at the neck. So we're going to go 3 inches in the armpit. And I'm going to actually take my tape measure out and just mark that on the side. So remember, on your human version, 7-inch neck, 8-inch armhole. Of course, you can make that really any size you want. It doesn't have to be the same size as I have it in the pattern. It worked out for the size that I was making as my sample. And if you need to make it a little bit larger, or you feel like you want it a little bit roomier, you can definitely do that. The other thing that I want to suggest to you is that you don't have to sew up this entire side. If you want to have a little bit of flare at the bottom and you want to maybe just have part of the side and then have the bottom open so that it is a little bit more flowy and a little dressier, you can definitely do that. You don't have to sew it up exactly as I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the corner and I'm going to come up to my pin at the side again, and I'm just going to go ahead and mark off my 3 inches on the side here. And then I'm going to sew from the bottom up to this as well. We can go ahead and mark the center too, so that we can just get all the sewing done at once. I did the same thing for, sort of the same thing for the neck that I did for the armpits, but I kept the measurement the same. On the V-neck, I went with a full 7 inches from the top, and that gets measured from this top corner. You go down. So I'm going to just go down. I feel like 2 inches is sufficient for the bitty baby. So I'm just going to match those stitches up and put a pin through that. But on the human one, you're going to go down the full 7 inches. And once again, this is completely customizable. You don't even have to, you can leave it open in the front. You can close it in the front. You can leave a slit up the front. You can start from here and go all the way to the top so that you've got more of a round neck or a boat neck style. So that you don't have to, you know, if you want full coverage in the front, this is so customizable. You can do whatever it is you want to do with the finished product. I'm going to go ahead and sew these parts together. I'm just going to use the same stitching that I used on the top, and I'm going to start from the bottom and work it. So once again, I've got a chain 4 turn here. I'm skipping that first chain, and I'm going to use that second chain to square that off and then join it over here. Alrighty, I'm gonna go do that. I'll be back in a minute. Alrighty, we are all sewn together on all sides. And I did leave that little bit of a flap up here. And I'm going to go on and finish this off with the last but not the least, the fringe. This is one of the parts where you can be super creative. I'm going to go ahead and use the colors that I used in my contrasting colors to create the tassels on the bottom. The way that I did it for the human version, and there are instructions in the written pattern, I used a 12-inch book. Actually, not 12 inches. It was 6 inches wide, but the pieces are actually 12 inches long. And I just used a book and I wrapped it around. And I did 20 times per tassel because the yarn that I used was fairly thin, so it didn't make a really robust tassel. So I went 20 times, and I'm going to show you how to do this. All right, I found my end, and we're going to wrap this. What I did is I flipped this back to the inside because we're actually going to do our tassels from the back to the front because it makes a prettier finish on the front side. So find something to wrap your yarn around. All right, it took me a hot minute to find something to wrap my yarn around, and I don't know why it took me so long, but it did. So this is about 5 inches wide. I don't really need my pieces to be quite that wide or long, but we're going to just use this and then we'll trim it down to the size that we need. So find your item that you're going to wrap around and grab on one side. I'm going to do 8 to 10 wraps. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll try 10. Now, I know this doesn't seem like a lot of yarn, but when we try to get it through the bottom of that little cover up, we are going to find that it's a lot of yarn. All right, so get all your pieces, and then what we're going to do, I'm just going to show you on this one. We have our, once again, we've got our inside out, and we're going to use a larger hook than what we crocheted with. and go through the space in between the two long pieces that you left. Poke it through to the front. Grab all of the yarn through the middle and pull it through. Now you should have your ends kind of equal. I didn't make sure to do that, so I'm going to do that now. Just kind of get them so that they're all the same basic length. This is also a good time for you to bring these long pieces in that we left, because we're going to now grab all of this yarn and wrap it over and pull it through that big loop that we just made. Now we're going to have to play with it a little bit because these pieces, the longer pieces, want to not behave themselves and come through. But when we cinch up that tassel on the front side, there's that one piece, and then you just kind of keep pulling them till they pull down nice. Just keep adjusting. Eventually you'll pull on the one that pulls that funky one at the top down. Of course, because I'm recording this, I may never find that one. All right, well, we're gonna just leave this for a second and I will fix that in a minute. So that's gonna be our tassel, and this is what it's gonna look like on the front side. This will be a much nicer knot in a minute as soon as I can find that piece that, oh, there, I found it. All right, so just keep pulling on the pieces until your knot becomes a nice, pretty knot. And this will not come off. I mean, this is gonna be a very sturdy tie-on tassel for you. And once you can get all those pieces so that they're not hanging out, let's just pretend that one's not there. So your tassels are going to look really nice from the front, and then you just go ahead and trim them to whatever length you want them to be. I'm going to bring mine down to about 3 inches-ish at the bottom of this, so my tassels aren't going to be overly long. All right, I'm going to continue all the way around this and do this with the green as well as the remaining pink and green all the way around. I'm not going to do any yellow tassels, so anything hanging out like this is just going to get tucked in as I'm going through. All right, see you in a minute. Alrighty, here we have the all of the tassels in place, and like I said, you just got to go through and clean up all the little extra hang-ons, and it'll make a nice tight tassel for you. All right, I'm going to get this on the Bitty Baby so we can try it on and see what it looks like. Okay, Bitty Baby's got her own little cover-up. Fits her pretty much perfectly. I hope that these basic instructions help you to create your own summer cover-up. And if you have any questions, obviously reach out to me on social media. I'm always there. All right, see you next time.